see other Faithists interact and get to know each other's stories and connect. And because we are kind of spread out, there's not a lot of us, and not very many of us know any Faithists in person. So I thought it would be nice, instead of having a channel that focuses on a lot of information, just focusing on connection. So that's what we're all about. That's what we're going
That's
to do.
great, David.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun
Fantastic.
doing it, and we actually have a lot of um, conversations with people who are not Faithists. I've had conversations with Catholics and Hindus and Muslims and pagans and like everybody. And the reason for that is um, oftentimes maybe a people group will be judged by a particular dogma or a belief, and not really how we interact with people. And so I just wanted to the other part of the channel is showing people who aren't Faithists that Faithists are not about judging. We are about having connections and
That's the
relationships, and
goal.
finding
That's the
positivity.
goal.
Yes, that's the goal. Okay, so I want to get to know you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're in Japan. Tell me sort of just the bullet points of what brought you to Japan, and like what kind of career did you retire from?
Well, I'm an English teacher. I've also been a math teacher, junior high and senior high. Um, I started teaching as a Peace Corps volunteer
Oh, okay.
in Africa. I taught 4 years working with the poor. Basically, Oahspe didn't was kind of the basis for me wanting to be a volunteer. Oahspe has several passages encourage us to work with the poor. I've done it in other
Hmm.
ways, like working in food kitchens and so forth. But I thought this seemed really constructive. I mean, you meet another culture and you share good ideas, learn from each other, and work with them to help their society progress in some way. Children education seemed like a noble thing to do. I worked in Botswana, which is just north of South Africa in the Kalahari Desert. And I also worked in Cameroon, which is right across the equator in the mountain highlands where coffee and cocoa are grown. So they're very different places. I had very intense experiences working with the poor. I'm convinced they're happier than any of us. They have strong
Yeah.
communities and they're very accepting and loving. It's almost, I'm not saying it's like paradise, but there's a lot to learn from the people of Africa, and they really have great hearts, and they don't have much, but they share what they have. And the reason they're poor is because the governments are corrupt and steal everything from them. Although Botswana's not that case. Cameroon was, but Botswana, they have like a diamond industry and they subsidize the food and try to help their people.
Oh, wow.
But the conditions are harsh because it's a desert, so it's hard to food and ranching, cows and milk. It's hard. It's hard to get things going because of the 40 degrees Celsius weather they have, with like 3 or 4 days of rain. So
Yeah, that's pretty hot.
anyway, it was very beautiful experience in both countries. I could talk a long time about that, but I better move on. I met my wife in Korea.
Okay.
After Peace Corps, I decided I really liked living overseas, and I liked the intercultural thing. One of my suggestions in Cosmin Voice was we should go. I think Faithists should try to meet people from other cultures, which is what you're doing, and try to learn from each other. So I'm very much in favor of what you're doing with this program. Whether it's a religion or another country, it's the same kind of basic high ideal, I think.
Yeah, I think we have
And
a lot to learn, lot we can connect over.
yes, and I was very alone. I was 13 years old when I saw Oahspe in a Walden bookstore with my mother.
How old were
We were
you?
confirmed 13.
Oh man,
When I opened the
13
first
years
page,
old.
I opened the first page, and my mother, we said, "This is like from the Bible. This is so cool." So I did a library loan and went through the Catholic versus Oahspe conflict. I but for 10 years I never met anybody who hadn't even heard of Oahspe. 10 years. And
Wow.
so then like in the early 80s I said I found I went to the library and there's some kind of listing of religious spiritual organizations and I got the Cosmic Voice. There was an address. I wrote to Irma Jean Lee. I met her the following year I met her. I decided I wanted to meet other Faithists. And with another Faithist, we moved out to California, worked with Belle Sundgren. I was part of the cult of Mary Lou Brown, who
Where
was
was that? Was that in was it Tennessee or Georgia or
was in
where?
California. When I was
California.
long distance cult member because I was in Michigan, she was in California. So, but we used to talk on the phone for hours. She sent me her documentation. I had some slight psychic experiences where I saw what she was sending me before I even got it. So
Oh
there's some
wow.
kind of Drugen thing was going on, and I performed the rites that she gave me.
And what
And
was her basis? Was it the everything was from a Oahspe, or was it kind of she took a Oahspe and just wanted to start running in a different direction, or
she went in different that she was ordained by God to lead the people into a new world. And my problem was the first edition I got of Cosmic Voice. It said Mary Lou Brown, goddess of the Red Star. Uh,
oh,
and then
she
there was some
proclaimed
kind
herself
of
to be goddess?
yes.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
so
that's a red flag.
I didn't know any. I didn't know any better. I was 20 years old. I
Right.
mean, my first association with Cosmic Voice and Oahspe people. Well, it must be true. So I contacted her, and she indoctrinated me. And I was a computer programmer at the time, and her husband worked for a military complex company, and she got me a job. She was going to get me a job over in California, so I would move over there.
Oh wow.
And I went for the interview, and then she said something terrible to me on the phone just before I was going to meet her, and I realized she was a. At that moment, I realized I'd been had. It was a hoax because she asked me to do something that was totally immoral. So there was a lot of oppression. I became friends with one of the members there earlier, and he a lot of them went through hell. There was a lot of mental berating and
Yeah.
just very negative treatment. And anyway, I didn't join. I just turned around, so I'm going home. But I ended up going to
Yeah, that's
California
good.
anyway with another Faithist. And the Bell Sun group was pretty good. It was just a group of healers,
Mm-hmm.
and they were psychic, and it was cool. And other groups, the Eloists, I've been an associate member at the Eloists. I visited them a few times. Very great people. I worked with Joan Greer for over 10 years
Oh
in
yeah, I know
her.
Joan. Joan and
We
Joy have
got
been on the channel together as a joint interview. They're great.
we got along very well. We never had a problem. Well, anyway, so I decided I wanted to go overseas again and went to Korea, taught English.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had gotten a degree in education between my Peace Corps volunteer stints, and then went to Korea and taught there about 3 years. I met my wife there, and she was Japanese, a Japanese teacher, and we fell in love. And I got a graduate fellowship offer from Central Michigan University, so I went back and
Mm-hmm.
we lived there. We lived in Michigan for a while, and then we moved to Japan after I completed my master's. And I've been teaching mostly high school for the past 25 years in Japan. Um,
How many languages do you speak? I mean, you
well,
must speak some because you've been all over the place. I mean, you
all right.
gotta have.
I studied French in high school and grade school, so I could speak it in Cameroon. I can speak French okay if I get a big warm up. It takes me a while to get into it. Je parle français un
Okay.
peu, but I'm not that. Anyway, my Japanese is pretty decent. since that's where I'm living now. It's a hard
Yeah.
language. It's really a blessing to know different people, the cultures of different people, because I think every culture has something wonderful about it. Each person
Yeah.
does. And I have friends, and the religion part about too, other denominations, I get that too. I made some really good friends with Muslims, Islamic faith, when I was in Africa and even in America, and I have a really high opinion of them too. So
Yeah.
it seems like wherever you go, there's wonderful people. There's all these stories in the news cycles. Well, there's this problem, there's this problem, but really everyone, if you meet them and get the chance to talk to them, like you're doing with all these different
Hmm.
individuals, you find out, man, God is love and God is in everyone, and it's a pretty nice world, really, when you just get a chance to get to know people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the fear machine, the media and the politics and all the financial doom and gloom and all the different religious organizations. It's all the organizations of the world. The people are great. The connections you can have with people outside of an organization. That's to me, that's what I have found is the most meaningful conversations I've had are outside of official organizations, outside of church, outside of politics, outside of, just one on one and no agenda, just getting to know each other. Like we're not trying to prove a point. We're just trying to have a connection. That is, that's the way forward in my head. After reading Oahspe several times and after having lots of conversations and going through lots of different sort of mental phases of I need to tell everybody about this and I need to convince everybody and whatever. It's
Mm.
the it's
I'm
yeah.
laughing at this.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember,
Well, I mean, I think we all go through that. I mean, it's
yeah.
it's kind of something you have to grow out of.
Hey, here's a
But
Oahspe. It's great. Please read it, and it'll change your life. And what? And
watch
then
all
when they
your
go to
friends
the
go away.
yeah, and it's not generally received very well.
No, it's not
Um,
going to be any. That's nothing productive
it's
there
not their
to be.
path. It's not their path.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay,
I,
let me back you way up. Back to 13. What kind of household were you living in? I mean, you said
Catholic.
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 Catholic. Okay.
I was an altar boy. My mother. Okay, my mother met my dad after she divorced her first husband,
Mm-hmm.
and she converted to Catholicism. This is what, well, basically, I was an unwed baby. So she prayed to God. She said, God, I will convert to Catholicism if my dad would marry her, and I promise that my son will become a priest.
Oh,
So my
she
dad.
convinced you.
Well, anyway, so my mother was thinking all these thoughts while she was pregnant. I think it affected me at least I think I was more interested in the spiritual as a boy than most people were. And in fact, I started researching stuff like the tarot and numerology.
Hmm.
Spiritual things appealed to me, not
Oh
and
yeah.
the Catholic faith too, to a degree, but uh, it wasn't until anyway. That's why I'm always looking at books that are of a spiritual nature. So that's why I was in the Walden bookstore looking for books like that. And Oahspe was there, and it was the most
So what
tremendous.
did your mom think? I mean, how much of this did you share with her right away? You said this sounds like it's right out of the Bible. What was she encouraging?
No, not well. She read the preface where it says, the preface really doesn't explain it well. It says God is really like the president of the heavens, which is not really the
Right.
way to explain it. It should be explained as they should have explained as saying there are angels in charge of our world. Some are higher ranked, we call them gods. But there still is a creator. You think of God, when you say God to a normal person, that's the creator. But they're going to use the term in the Oahspe God as a high angel of some kind who it presides over the heavens. So my mom misunderstood that. She thought it meant there was no God. He was just the president or something. So she said, don't read this
That
anymore.
It's a little hard to navigate that and actually get a good understanding. I mean, it's not hard. It just takes a little bit of time to read it. It's pretty clear. It's just at first, it's kind of like your brain gets scrambled up a little bit until you understand what it is they're talking about.
It took me years to get process it. I mean, I was alone 10 years and no one to like explain this to me.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth. I said, no, I shouldn't read it. Yes, I should read Oahspe. So I went back and forth. Finally, I bought the book with my own savings, and I was committed to it. And but I was so frustrated because where is everyone? There's nobody here that I don't know anybody that wants to read Oahspe, and I haven't met anybody who's ever read it, or even heard of it. So it was frustrating.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to you were going back and forth quite a bit? How long did it take you to buy it yourself? I mean, you were committed when you bought it.
Well, 3 years. I did a library loan because most libraries don't have Oahspe. I got the Wing Anderson Blue 1935 edition first. I think it's a pretty good edition, actually. But I ended up buying not Jim Palmer, sorry. What's his first name? Palmer. Anyway, the Palmer edition. And has a nice gold book edge to it. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Is it the blue? Is the Eloist edition or the?
I've got the Eloist. The Eloist have been very, like I say, I'm kind of I guess I'd say I was an associate member of.
Yeah. I have the Eloist one.
Yeah, they did that for free.
Right? They gave it to you. Well, I bought the Eloist, I mean the Oahspe, but they're giving out the Radiance for free. I mean, just amazing.
It's such a wonderful, that kind of changed me too. When I was in Africa, I made friends with a Faithist called Rosemary Day, and she introduced me. We were pen pals, and I started subscribing to the Radiance, and I thought, wow, this is way cool, and it kind of like complements the Oahspe so well. So yeah, I really, in fact, part of it got me into digitalizing books like Oahspe and other spiritualism books. That's one of my hobbies, is uploading them to some kind of book sharing site or putting them on YouTube. And I did Radiance. I've pretty much done all of Radiance. It's on YouTube, or you can download it if you wanted to.
Well, I have the physical copy, but you said you have a website that has like a book sharing website. What is that?
Well, it's been sort of a Scrib-B. I had originally at Scrib-B, but what happened was people would download my books, then they would upload them, but they would do it for a price. So Scrib-B wants members who will charge money to download. So what they did was they deleted my account. Every time someone did it, they would delete my edition because it was free. So and also, so anyway, that eventually ended after 3 or 4 years because of that.
These books that you've collected digitally, are they on archive.org?
Not yet. I've only got one, The Principles of Light and Color, which was a very rare, important book, which also correlates well with Oahspe as far as light goes. It's scientific and
really
spiritual.
Fascinating. One of my hobbies, I'll tell you something about me, is printing. So far, I've only made journals that have blank pages. But what I want to do is print off digital books and bind them. And I have the skills for book binding. I've already experimented with that. I mean, they're not anything elaborate with gold leaf lettering or anything like that, but I have the skills to put them in a book, and I would love to have the books, and I'm just now getting the space where I could recreate all the equipment that you need to bind books. But yeah, print them up, bind them, and then I mean, it'd be great if we ever had like a Faithist community and actually have like a library and have all these books physically right there. I mean,
It's
digital
true.
books are cool for sure, but I'm a big fan of the physical books.
Yeah, I think there's some books you just like to have the physical form, the hard copy. So I think
Hmm.
that's awesome. That's awesome, David. Cool. I'll send you, as soon as our interview's over, I'll send you the links. I've got a MeWe group going. It hasn't been as dynamic as the Facebook. A lot of people join, but then no one says anything, so it's like a ghost town. Anyway, I'd be happy if you could actually bind some of these books, spread them out however you want. So what
Yeah.
I would do, some books I physically took and scanned them page by page.
Wow.
Other it took many thousands of hours. Other books I got like really sorry the crappy sorry that bad word crappy
That's fine.
visualized versions and just tried to make them clean so people could read it.
Hmm.
Some of them was standard. There's all these junk that got into it, so it's like there's the words aren't really complete. There's misspelled. There's
Mm.
just gobbledygook, and so I would have to figure out what was missing.
So what did you
It's
do? Retype them all up?
uh, I would for the I would take what they had and then look at the original copy and just retype over the bad portions.
Oh, I
And
see.
then when it was in good shape, I would then upload it to the book sharing site.
Wow. Wow. What a huge blessing that effort. I mean, maybe it hasn't been appreciated yet, but
A lot of
what
people have sent thanks, but
it would be it would be cool to be able to find a way of binding the books economically, because just the paper and just the toner and just the materials. I did a calculation, and I may be a little bit over, but for me to print this up from a
oh
PDF,
yeah,
for me to
wow,
print this up on a PDF on the paper I want, because I want it to
yeah.
be like a thin kind of there's this Japanese paper I used to make journals out of, very thin paper but very sturdy. It would be
Hmm.
about $200 just for the
Wow.
materials. I mean, it
One book?
could be less, huh?
Oh, one book?
For a Oahspe, yeah, for one book, it probably
For
at
massive.
least
Okay.
$100, probably $200 just for the paper.
Yeah, the Ellis really did a good job, for
Oh,
sure,
they did a
on those.
great job. I would like to
Yeah,
have a version of a Oahspe that was a little bit more portable, a little bit easier to
yeah.
carry, but
Uh, there was a English version, a small Oahspe, green, dark green. I wore it out. I think I had two editions. I bought it two times, and I wore it out because it's
yeah.
so easy to carry. It was perfect. It was like this big.
Hmm.
It was like B5 size paper, maybe, if that.
Yeah, and it would be nice to have a little bit thinner too, because honestly, this is the LOS edition is only it's less than 900 pages with all the index and everything. You can get a Bible with like 1,500 pages of like that thick.
Yeah,
It's like there's got to be a way of making this more accessible to,
yeah.
it's
I
great to
mean,
have on your lap, but I mean, if I were to put this in my backpack, I can't fit
it's
anything
like
else in it.
I go to bed and I'm trying to read it, going, oh, it's like, it's too
Yeah.
heavy. Uh,
But for me to do it one book at a time, it would be extremely expensive. So one of these days, I'd like to find sort of a publishing company that can publish it to my specifications for what we're talking about, so it's a little more portable, and hopefully the
yeah,
price cannot be
if
super expensive.
especially a Oahspe is a book that needs to have that miniaturization going a bit because you'd like to carry with you, but
Oh yeah.
you, I mean, even yeah. Anyway, if you can do that, that'd be awesome, David. I mean, the Yellow's made the best version ever, I think, for sure.
Oh, it's amazing. I have emailed them a little bit back and forth. I wanted to interview them, but they're committed to being
No.
anonymous, which I can
Yeah.
appreciate and
Oh, yeah.
understand, but
Yeah.
I would love I would love to have some interaction with them that I could
Yeah.
publish or something.
I have met them. I've gone there several times. I've met Bob and his family and some maybe 4 or 5 others. Uh, I was actually kind of worried because I actually digitalized the Ellis writings without their permission,
Uh,
and because I know he's so private,
right.
and I didn't think they'd give me permission, but I thought this is for the world. I can't. I want more people to be connected to this. So I did it,
Hmm.
and I found out through a third person. Said, "Yeah, they're fine with it. They don't mind." I did it in a very professional way, with the same with the stuff they have in the. There's like a preface to the Ellis Radiance editions, and I put the same things in there,
Mm.
and so contact them. So they were cool with it.
I
Give their
asked them
answers.
a bunch of questions before I got Radiance, and they said, all of your questions will be answered once you start reading Radiance. I'm like,
Oh,
well, they were correct. They were correct. But again, I was wanting to have a sort of build a little bit more connection with them. But yeah,
yeah. Anyway, great people, but private,
yeah,
and they would otherwise they're so generous. I mean, to get both, just send it to me. I didn't even. I asked for the Radiance edition, because it said if they'll give you the Radiance if you have the Oahspe edition. Yeah, there's some really great. I feel very blessed to meet different Faithists around the country, and I'm in Japan now, so I don't do that anymore. But
right.
I'm glad to
Well,
have a chance through Zoom
I know
to meet
without
some
the
people.
internet, man, we would be so isolated. My even with the internet, my wife and I didn't meet one single Faithist for a year. We read the Waspy on our own for a year, and for whatever reason, it took a year before our before we were inspired to look again. And as soon as we started looking, we found hundreds of Faithists like on Facebook. Like, wait, wait a second. We looked a year ago. We didn't find anybody. And then, it's just a matter of timing.
Uh, I I was wondering whether I should share this perspective with you, but I have some radical ideas about Oahspe, at least according to some.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Share with me.
Well,
Okay, okay.
okay,
But before you share with me, I want to ask you a question.
go ahead.
So I sort of asked this question for most of the faiths that I talked to. When you started reading Oahspe, it's a two-part question. What was the first thing that just lit your brain on fire, your spirit on fire? Like, yes, this is the truth. And the second part is, what was the thing you ran across to Oahspe that was really hard for you to kind of understand and grapple with? And once you got it, it was like all the dots started to connect.
Well, the first pages of Oahspe really made me think that the Oahspe chapter called Oahspe,
Yeah.
the spirit of the voice of the spirit was that this is God Almighty talking to me. I just felt that strong. But also the Book of Judgment. I actually printed out passages of the Book of Judgment when I was in college, and I put it posted on my wall
Oh,
from
really?
and it was about trying to help people basically, and not become
Mm-hmm.
a priest. And so anyway, but I still hadn't met anybody from who was a faithist. What am I? Okay,
Right.
so anyway. Book of Judgment really has had a. That's the book that has the most impact on me, is the Book of Judgment, because it talks about what you should do to
Mm-hmm.
make
And
a
gives
difference in the world.
examples.
And anyway, the thing that hit me that I had the hardest time with, I think seeing certain pictures in Saphah were disturbing to me,
Yeah.
and I basically didn't understand what the heck was going on, especially when hadn't met anybody yet. So I told myself, basically, one of my philosophies is Nothing is perfect. You can't, if something you can't explain, but there are good things, ignore what you can't understand. Just concentrate what you can understand, you find valuable and helpful. So I just ignored it, for the most part.
Yeah. There's there are plates and there are images, and I have no idea,
What
no
they're
clue
doing.
what they're trying to depict. And I just move
Well,
on. Maybe one of
well,
these days.
that's been. I mean, for the past 10 years, I've been trying to understand what the heck happened in Saphah, and anyway, it started with Jim Denton. He had a theory that um, the Freemasons had a lot of influence on John Newbrough, and of course,
Yeah.
he was the highest level, 33 level.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a hint. So I said, okay, I'm going to look at the symbolism of the Masons and the symbolism in Oahspe, in Saphah, and see how well
Mm-hmm.
they correlate. And there was a pretty strong correlation. I know
Yeah.
some people say, well, Saphah is just a historical record, and so therefore you're going to get some duplicates. That's why it's there. It's just being
Right.
comprehensive. But I didn't buy it because to me, Saphah contradicts the rest of Oahspe. Oahspe says direct communication with the Creator and don't get hung up on the ancients. That's old. This is the New Age, and there's no priests, there's no clergy. But in Saphah, there are rites which were,
Yeah.
according to the editorial notes, were being actually still practiced. And the Cosmic Church has, of course, and the UFK to some extent too, has rites which are based on the plates of Saphah. And anyway, I kept doing research on it, and I found so many correlations where things were lifted from Masonic ideas that I came to the conclusion that Sappho was not originally in Oahspe. Maybe parts of it were,
Mm-hmm.
but vast majority was not. I then decided, someone gave a suggestion, why don't you do a software authorship check to see what was what? So I
Okay.
said, okay. So then I said, let me test this. I took 3 or 4 famous authors and it said, here's their books. And so I took the text and I said, okay, match them up with the authors. It did it perfectly. And so, okay, now I'm going to take books that Newbrough wrote about 4 or 5 books. And I
Really?
took, okay, yeah,
Outside of
yeah,
Oahspe.
yeah. One famous book is called Spiritualis, where he interviewed spirits, 1874. He did a spirit interview where he just asked questions about the spirit world.
How come this is the first time I'm hearing about this? This is four
I can give
years
you.
in. No,
I'll give
how
it to
come no
you.
one knows about
I can give you. I got the. It's on YouTube and it's also on. I've got an ebook for you. You can
it?
download it.
Yeah, okay. All right. So continue on with your authorship verifications.
So I mean, I've actually got the results. Anyway, the results were that Safa it connected the books he wrote, and it also, and oh, by the way, he also wrote The Castaway. There was like a publication, so I found everything he ever wrote in real life, and
Oh,
put it with all each separate book of Oahspe, and the results were Safa and the Book of Jehovah's Kingdom were written by Newbrough. Okay, I'm not saying. I mean, I've always admired the Book of Judgment, the Book of Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth. So I'm not saying I don't know what to make of that, but that's just what the results came out as that he wrote
hmm.
Safa. And
Interesting.
and since there's a contradiction between what Safa emphasizes, which is Masonic style worship, where there's a master initiate. You go on Facebook, you go on YouTube, you'll see the same thing. This is the relationship. There's a master who's going to teach you all about Oahspe, and you will listen to what they have to say. And some of them
Yeah,
are
and
priests.
different levels.
Yeah, which is not what Oahspe preaches. Oahspe says we're all equal before the Father.
So
So anyway,
so this is really interesting. can I just say how I thought, when reading a Oahspe and having Saphah, I I definitely have never had a conversation about it with anybody other than my wife. But whenever I read Safa, it always just struck me as this was when Faithists were more organized in communities with the Rabbah and with, it's just giving a glimpse of how things used to be, not a direction. Because it says in the time of Cosmon, even like the Sabbath, it says either keep it or don't keep it. It's up to you, have to find your own path. And so it's very much more loose, up to the individual. It's not this rite and ritual type of thing. But that, to me, the way I took it was Safa was a real thing, but not for today. It's just showing you what had happened. But you're saying that it probably was mostly just injected into Oahspe.
And it's had a negative consequence for the book. I can think of at least 12 times I showed Oahspe to somebody. As soon as they opened the book of Saphah, it was like, this is demonic. I don't want anything to do with it. And they put it away. So I think I really believe it was put in there to keep people from wanting to read it, for one. And then two, all this symbolism of Simon and other Bien, all these different little symbol things. It's like, I don't know, some kind of mind control where people think they want people to meditate upon these symbols rather than going out and doing some good works. And so if you go on all the Facebook Oahspe groups, they're not talking about, what can we do as a group to help people? Should we maybe raise money for the people in Gaza? Should we have a reach out program for the elderly? What can we do together to help the world?
Right.
And no, it's talking about all these details of what's in Saphah. Some of them have actually this is symbolism right on their front page. It's like it's the first thing they look at. It's become the ending and the beginning. They love pondering the little details about different symbols and rites, but as far as talking about helping people, nothing.
Right.
So that's to me, it's so frustrating to see them go down that path. And if you start talking about them, they say you're criticizing Oahspe.
Well,
and I said,
it's the same mentality as Christians that want to talk about the doctrine, but they don't want to live it out.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not saying these people are bad people. I'm just saying they've been misled. Because Oahspe has all these wonderful ideas, and then Sophists there say, well, if it's in there, it must be true. But you have to be able to discriminate. Sometimes, if you really understood the principle of Oahspe, you'd say what's in Saphah goes against what Oahspe really proposes.
So let's say I do a new edition and leave out Saphah and the God's kingdom on earth.
I like God's kingdom on earth. I like God's kingdom on earth. I can't explain. I still like the book.
But leave out Saphah for sure. Yeah, Saphah is a mystery to me. I've never understood it. It's been interesting to read, but.
And I did other research on the plates. One thing I discovered was the plates were not in the right order. Almost 80% of the plates were not where they should have been. For example, the maps of the world, those should have been where they first start talking about the like Guatemala. If they bring up Guatemala, they should show it. If they talk about Pan,
right.
Instead they have it near Saphah, which I think it was done there because they were trying to like say, well, here's the great maps, and it's right by Saphah. So remember, these maps are really cool and everything. So is Saphah. So, but they didn't put all. I did an article. I've done research where all the plates should be placed. Even in Saphah, they didn't put them in the right place half the time. That's an exaggeration, but there's some that are misplaced. There's all sorts of mistakes in Saphah. There's place with no text. There's text with no place. So I've been spending 10 years researching Saphah and going through it.
Well, if I ever do an
Um,
edition of Oahspe, I'll use you as my consultant to
yeah,
see
I can tell you.
all
I
the
can tell you.
plates in Safa that could be placed somewhere else in Oahspe that would make
I
more
can.
sense.
I can. I've got it. It's all set. I can
You've
tell you. I
already
got a
got it.
list. I'll send it to you. It's the book makes so much more sense when you've got the plate that's supposed to go. It's supposed to go with, right with the text. But most of the time, it's
Yeah.
not in the right place. Like the divine signature, where is it? It's not where it's supposed to be. So it's cool, but it's not in the right place. But if it's
Well,
with the text that goes with it,
yeah, I have noticed that.
it hits you stronger. There's a few that have been, like I said, 20% have been placed correctly. But so that's my other conclusion is I don't think of Newbrough as really understanding much about Oahspe. This is my other radical idea. Okay.
Yeah.
You can, okay, I'm the radical guy, maybe, but I don't think he channeled it.
Okay. How did he get the information?
I don't know. He was a spiritualism researcher. I believe he got. Masons are always on the lookout for new spiritual content, which they kind of adopt and try to glorify themselves with, kind of thing. It's their approach, whether it's the Egyptian religion or whatever, or the medieval crusade knights. They just try to adopt everything to
Mm-hmm.
surround themselves with all the glory that is in symbolism and so on. And I think he got it from somebody in his spiritualism group. And the reason
Published or unpublished? Because there's a lot of
unpublished,
information in Oahspe, and I've considered this theory that you're bringing up. In my head, without the internet and one guy, it would be extremely difficult to get all this information in one place. Like, I don't even know where you'd go to find all the information. And Oahspe, I mean, okay, I'll concede that Safa is sort of an anomaly, but um, setting that aside, Oahspe seems fairly
yeah,
consistent, internally consistent. That would be very
very.
difficult to do with.
It's godlike.
So if he didn't
It,
channel it and he didn't understand it, how did it come about? How would
Someone
he have done
else
it?
channeled it. I think he just got possession of it and then co-opted it.
Oh.
Now, here's why I started. This is only recently I've had this theory. It's because I found like 4 different accounts of how he channeled it. First, there's
Hmm.
an account in Banner of Light. He wrote a letter in 1883. Oh, I don't know if
Well,
I don't. Can you?
there's a letter that's included at the beginning
Yes,
from him.
that's what I'm talking about. That's
Oh, okay.
exactly what I'm talking about, David. And basically, oh, okay.
Banner of Light, yeah,
Let me review. I
1983.
made an outline, 1883.
Right.
So, can I find? I'm trying to. I kind of wanted to. I was thinking about should I show this during the interview, and I thought, okay, well, anyway, I went through a lot of stuff. The Cosmin Church, now called the Cosmin Sanctuary, was initiated in April 1984. Okay, this is like the hardcore priest group. Anyway,
Hmm.
on their website right now, they say that Oahspe was channeled in 1848, which is
1840.
totally the beginning of the Cosmin era, and published in 1881. Now I don't know where they got that, but I think they probably got messages from the spirit world which were incorrect. But anyway, I'm just showing you how there's, but that has nothing to do with John Newbrough. He didn't. But anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Jim Denon did research where he got through the banner of light. Uh, there was a friend of Newbrough called Davis. They agreed to purify themselves for 10 years. And this started in 1870. And his grandson gave a recollection that they started in 1870, and the details don't match Jim, don't match the banner of light that was published in 1883.
You're right.
Newbrough also gave an interview to the New York Herald Tribune in 1873, where he said there was an angel called Ainu who tells Newbrough to prepare to channel Oahspe. Okay, so this also doesn't match the banner of light, because in the banner of light, Newbrough says it came into his head to, I'll go farther. Let's see. So in Spiritualis, Newbrough says that in 1874, he hadn't made up his mind that there is a spirit world. He thinks it could all be a hoax in 1874. And yet he says an angel visited him in 1873, there was also 1870 that they would start the purification. So that's a big contradiction. How can both be true? He's agnostic about spiritualism, and yet prior to that, he got communications from an angel to do the purification.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then the banner of light, Newbrough says that some years ago, Oahspe was mechanically written through my hands. This is in 1883, an interview. That's when he wrote in the letter. Some years ago. Yet we know, according to our most sources, like 1881, it was channeled. So it's like some years ago. What does he mean by that?
Yeah, it's pretty vague.
And it sounds like it wasn't 1881. So after a while, I took it into my head that wise and exalted angels could commune better with us if we purify ourselves physically and spiritually. So he started this whole thing because it came into his head. There was no appearance of an angel, as is given in other accounts. Anyway, there's contradictions. So, I mean, you could probably find a way to rationalize all the contradictions, to say somehow it all makes sense, but because there's 4 different accounts, and you wonder just what's happening. So that's what I'm saying to me, it seems very likely he didn't channel it, because there's different stories.
To me, I know that sounds crazy to say to a faithist and wonder how that's going to be received, but I have to admit the thought has crossed my mind, especially when I consider him as a person, and his grade does not seem high enough to channel a Oahspe, because I mean, I've heard of him telling his wife, I can't, I have to be celibate and I have to be a vegetarian, all the while having a mistress, and then the disaster of the community. It's like, you read the stories of the community, it's like, are any of these people not aware of Oahspe? Because you're not doing anything, you're doing everything opposite of what the Oahspe says. So it's like, what you're saying to me resonates, and that I still, it's like,
we still love Oahspe. I love
Oahspe
and its message
still cannot be an invention of the imagination. It has to have come from some channeling of some sort somewhere.
A very high grade being.
Yeah. So you think he ran across it when he was a Freemason and stole it?
I believe he was with Madame Blavatsky, all just different psychics, occult groups, and he was doing he was just basically trying to meet everyone who's involved with spiritualism. And to me, he just came across it somehow. And I mean, I give my thanks that he got it published.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that alone, but I'm really unhappy that he sabotaged it in a way by putting the Saphah in, because it scared people away, and it's also we've got groups on Facebook right now arguing about or discussing how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. It's worthless. It's so pointless conversation. Well, what we really should be talking about, what you're doing is really good works. You're trying to make connections.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing everyone should be involved in. either
Yeah.
work with the poor or try to get the good people to come together. That's why I'm doing the prayer group, because I'm thinking, can we at least pray together with
Mm-hmm.
sincerity of heart, and something good will come from it. I
Mm-hmm.
know that.
Oh, I know I've only been to your group one time and
Please come back.
not been back, but it's only been not it's I haven't been back because of
Busy.
almost
I'm
an
busy.
impossibility to make it. But I really
It's okay.
think,
It's okay.
yeah, I really think what that group represents is
We're trying.
extreme, especially now that I'm reading more of the Radiance. I'm like, wow, that's why he's doing it. It's so
Yes.
powerful. It needs to be done so much.
Yeah. See, good works. The angels don't have physical bodies, so they use their mind and spirit and soul to create good things in the world.
Hmm.
And we're, in comparison, we're minuscule compared to them as far as our powers, but we have to try. And I think if
Yeah.
we can't get together physically, couldn't we spiritually do something, blessings to make everyone's life better? The world's in trouble right now, and can't we just push? Can't we create some good feelings? I think
Right.
the answer is yes. We have to try.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you.
Anyway,
Totally agree with you.
but I tell everyone you got a life to live. So if I only get 2 or 3 people each time, it's the way it is, and I'm happy to get 2 or 3 people. But I think if it keeps expanding, maybe there'll be more people at each session, more power to share with the world. But I
Hmm.
totally get it. I mean, different continents, time zones. It's not easy to coordinate it. So
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a challenge.
but thank you for thinking well, and I'm so happy to meet someone who has open mind. And I love Oahspe. I love everything that's in it. And I'm not trying to create Salem witch trials or something for people who are into becoming a priest or um, think Saphah symbols are cool. I'm just trying to shift the focus back to what Oahspe was originally created for.
Right. Yeah, so
And
to create that seventh era kingdom, a cosmon where religion can die away and
yeah,
we can have peace on the world. And honestly, a lot of people, I mean, this is good conversation because I think the more we can be honest, the less
open. Hmm.
the less deification of a waspy. And on this is one thing I told my wife when we found a waspy. There is not going to be a time where I call it call it scripture. I'm tired of having books be elevated. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done with all that. I'm done with religion. I'm done with holy books. I'm done with all of it. I will learn whatever I can, wherever I can. Um, my sister, we were all raised very conservative Christian. My sister, I had a waspy and I was visiting with her and I was leaving, I was packing up something and because she knows how much I do value the book, she was about to put something on top of a waspy and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And because when we were Christian, we never put anything on the Bible and it'll
Uh,
always face up. And I told her, I looked at her and I understood exactly what she was saying. And I said, please put bury a waspy with whatever it is that you have in your hand. And she's like, what? And I said, I cannot afford to deify a waspy. So one of the things I do on purpose is if there are books stacked, I put a waspy on the bottom. In my own heart,
the
it's
top.
keeping me from worshiping a waspy.
Uh, that's a great point. Thank you for saying that, David. I mean, Oahspe says it in its first 2 pages. Don't. It's not immaculate. No book is immaculate.
Right.
It says only the Creator is immaculate, and that's who
Well,
we
when I was a
aspire to.
Christian, I didn't know this at the time, but looking back, the Bible, the physical book, all of the physical books of the Bible I had were idols. I mean, they were I worshiped them. I treated them like they were made of tissue paper, just like divine ooze from the ether.
Yeah, yeah. I really admired the saints and so on, but many of them actually live pretty good lives, I think. But I know what you're saying. You deify. I mean, John Newbrough has become kind of deified, I think, in the minds of many Oahspe readers. Like he can do no wrong. Whatever he did, it's cool. Don't if he
Yeah,
did
just
something bad, hide it. If he mistreated people at Shalom, you should ban that discussion.
yeah, I think that's inappropriate. I think everything should be out in the open. Yep, absolutely. So what other crazy ideas do you have?
Did I have another one? Let's see. Newbrough didn't channel it. Um, Jeez. Masonic. That might be all the crazy ideas I have.
All right.
Um, Thanks for listening.
Oh, I love it.
No,
I
I
love
want
it.
to say this though. All the people who have got into the priesthood, clergy, Saphah thing, and spent hours um, discussing the intricacies of Saphah or cosmology, they're good people.
Yeah.
I know if I just talk to them, like, how's the small talk, these aren't bad. They're not trying to, like Mary Lou Brown was probably evil. There are some cult leaders who are evil and try to misuse you,
Mm-hmm.
take your money, abuse you sexually. There's some out there. There's some Oahspe groups that have been like that, in fact.
Yeah.
I always say 99% of the people are good, but 99% of the problems are caused by 1%.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
guess what I'm trying to say.
it's good that there's different perspectives on Oahspe because everyone is neat. It's people have to have a starting point, and so their starting point may be a different perspective than my starting point, but we're all on the same journey. Detours or the long way around is how it's described, and so I'm I'm happy for everybody who's on the journey to stay on the journey. It may not be
And,
something that
and,
hits me the same way, but
and you directly addressed this before. There are people on other spiritual paths who are very worthwhile communicating with, who have
oh
never
yeah.
heard of Oahspe,
Mm-hmm.
and that perhaps they're more advanced than we are, more advanced than me anyway.
Oh,
So I think connecting with people who are not on the non-Oahspe path has a lot of great value to it too.
mm-hmm. I just read something in Radiance just a couple days ago that was basically exactly what we're talking about. Eternal progression. It's on page 44. There is no one best way for eternal progression. Whatever urges you onward and upward is a good pathway for you. Whatever drags you downward is a bad pathway. There is no good and there is no evil, only what you make of it. Anyway, it goes on and on. I mean, it's like a couple paragraphs. It was a good reminder to me, even something that looks like a really negative path is designed for the people on that path to learn the lessons they need to learn. So just it's kind of like a reminder to me to kind of go with the flow a little bit. Go with the flow that I'm being pulled in and let other people go in the flow that they're being pulled in.
Makes sense. It's a really strong spiritual idea to unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, anyway, be positive. That's what Radiance certainly emphasizes more than once.
I've been wanting to ask you this and I haven't had a chance yet. Tell me about your wife. Like, what does she think about
Wow.
Oahspe? Is that a
Oh, well, there's the case of people from two different worlds somehow being in harmony, a totally, completely different path. she's Shinto, which is actually pretty close to Oahspe. It's nature, a God in nature,
Oh,
ever
okay.
present nature. It's pretty. It's I don't. It gets pretty deep philosophy. If you could read Japanese, it gets pretty. There's just tons of literature on it, but basically, it's nature and God, God in nature, God in everyone. Live and let
That
live.
sounds pretty much like a Oahspe.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you've been saying. But I think I showed her Radiance once and tried to get her to read it. I think I tried to do, but she's like, nah, I'm not into it. So I said, okay. So, but she knows I'm into Oahspe. She doesn't have any opinion on it. She says, well, that's your thing. And so she just
Hmm.
let, and she doesn't like judge me and say, well, this is crap. She just says, whatever, do what you want. Um, she had, so we just respect each other's spiritual paths. I'll go to Shinto temples with her and we pray
Yeah.
there. There's a belly ring and you
Mm.
pray.
Well, that's
It,
pretty cool. My wife and I had experimented a little bit of trying to find cultures that are mostly compatible with being a faithist, like the idea, like the core, right?
Shinto
I,
comes
I
close.
yeah, I started going to a Native American weekly
Oh,
ceremony,
yay.
and the drumming and the singing. And the first time I went, I just
Yeah.
started crying because they were
Yeah.
worshiping the creator. It was very
Yeah.
powerful. I loved it. But
Powwow.
ultimate ultimately it was kind of hard to continue going because there was such a huge cultural
Distance.
gap.
Yeah.
And was having a hard time maintaining that connection because it was kind of a foreign environment to me, and I didn't have like somebody there as like my
Um,
ambassador walking me through it. I was
yeah.
just there. I was just a stranger. So it was difficult to keep going, but I loved it. It was awesome. It
Native
was so cool.
American spiritual is very cool. I think pretty much all Oahspe readers like it. I've been to several powwows. I've been to
Hmm.
Sweat Lodge a few times, and I really respect what's going on. I felt the same way you did, basically. Wonderful, and yet I feel disconnected somehow.
Yeah.
Uh, I am partly Native. I'm partly Pawnee,
Oh, okay.
but I didn't grow up Pawnee,
Yeah.
so it's. I grew up like a
Yeah.
Catholic white boy, so
Yeah. So you still have that cultural gap there.
yeah. But
One of the songs that they sang, somehow they translated the title of it, and it hit me so hard. It was this beautiful song, and it was called Land of the Beautiful Light. And I can't even imagine what the actual
mm,
song was translated, but they're
mm,
singing about the land of the beautiful light and to the great creator.
wow.
And I was like, so powerful. Loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah, there's. I think just to go there and experience it may inspire you and others to like figure out how communities can pray together. And it certainly is beautiful. I feel very troubled when I think of the oppression the Native Americans have gone through and
Yeah,
various ter-
for sure.
terrible trials. But the spiritual path has shown the brighter maybe for them, and I pray we can all be more one somehow. But I do
Dealing.
like this. But Shinto, I mean, people don't gather like in groups. It's not the same thing when you go take picnics together. Basically, it's very brief. You go to a shrine. The Creator's ever present. And for a few seconds you ring a bell and pray. And there's different shrines for different things you can pray for. But there's no like there's no community feeling where they say, "Hey, let's have a picnic tomorrow." Everyone kind
Oh,
of goes
really?
their own way. But at the
Oh,
same time, you don't feel threatened. But there's no connection
really?
really. You just have your own family, and you can buy um,
A
ornaments and
religion
prayer.
without a community. That's very strange to me.
I know but it's that's what Shinto is.
Hmm.
At the same time, they don't judge you. No one's judging you. You just do your part and then leave. Pray.
Wow.
I do feel better after praying there. Um, I guess you could just go out in the wilderness and pray too. That'd be Shinto too, and
Well,
that's what they believe in.
I think they're worshiping the creator, and so you get enough people in the one spot, and it's like you're creating a vortex, and
Uh,
it's kind of it's kind of like the more you do that, like the more solid it becomes. Like it gets a little sticky. It sticks to that area, and so when you go there to pray, you can feel
it's a
it.
connection.
Yeah,
The
because
vortex
that
energy links,
yeah that
lines of
light.
alignment.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Um, yeah, I've kind of maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I've heard of Shinto people going into the wilderness, like in a river and immersing themselves, and then like standing in a circle and praying. I've heard of it, but
Mm-hmm.
those are real hard. Those are the real serious Shinto
Oh,
practitioners, and I've never met any, but I guess
hmm.
they're out there. But
Right.
but their example should inspire us, maybe as Faithists. Maybe that's what we should find a way to meet and like go out into a walk under a waterfall and pray together. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but we're just
It would
uh,
be cool. It would be awesome to have not only Faithists, but like-minded
oh,
Faithists
yeah, that's
in
a good point. I don't.
a
That's a good point.
community that we can meet physically together. That would be amazing. I would love that.
Well, it's something to keep in mind and to figure a way to work towards. I think you're absolutely right. Shouldn't just be the Faithist path. It should be all paths that want to be one with the Creator. So
Hmm.
keeping in mind, it's a future project, Dave, for whoever can move towards it. But
Yes.
anyway, I know I'm wearing out my welcome here, so
You're not wearing out your welcome, but my voice is wearing out.
yeah. Thank you. I really enjoyed this interview. You're one of
Yeah.
the best Faithists I've ever met, and I'm really grateful to have had a chance to talk with you.